And welcome to Suthichai Live English Podcast. We are following very closely the political developments in Thailand, especially the leadership crisis facing Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. Will she survive the ongoing political crisis? On July 1st, the Constitutional Court is scheduled to take up the case against her. There is a request to suspend her from the premiership if the court accepts the case. The case stems from the leaked audio clip of her private conversation with Hun Sen, former Prime Minister of Cambodia, father of Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. Accusations have been thick and fast that she overstepped her role as Prime Minister, and in the private conversation she was trying to beg for mercy and support from Hun Sen while saying that the Thai army was on the opposite side against the government, which is quite a serious statement from a Thai leader. Also, there is a big rally on June 28th against her, calling for her resignation. Public donations for the rally has soared to about 10 to 15 million baht in the matter of 2 days, reflecting public dissatisfaction with her to a great extent. How is she going to survive? What are some of the factors that could affect her premiership? What's going to happen to Thailand if she goes? All these are issues that need a deep dive. So Ping and Pong, my AI companions, commentators, will give you a deep dive into all the aspects of the ongoing political mess in Thailand. Hi, Ping and Pong.
Hi, we are an AI team, Ping and Pong. Welcome to Suthichai Live English Podcast, offering a deep dive into the ongoing political issues in Thailand. Will Prime Minister Paetongtarn survive the ongoing self-inflicted crisis? Our mission today is really to cut through some of the noise. There's this complex, unfolding political situation in Thailand, and we're zeroing in on a leaked audio clip that seemed to have ignited a major crisis for Prime Minister Paetongtarn. We want to examine the specifics, understand the wider implications.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've looked at quite a range of sources. We've got detailed analyses of the leaked audio itself, various political commentaries, naturally, plus the latest reports on that whole border situation, and importantly, the legal challenges the Prime Minister is now facing. The goal, really, is to give you, our listener, a clear, impartial picture of what's actually going on.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Maybe start with the immediate context.
Yeah.
Because things have been tense along the Thai-Cambodia border for, almost a month now? Since late May.
That's right, specifically since May 28th. It followed some clashes near the Ton Phayong tree, that's at Chongbuk, in Ubon Ratchathani province. It hasn't really calmed down since.
And the military presence sounds
Oh, it is. Cambodia moved more than 10,000 troops, plus a lot of equipment right along the border. It's not just, standard patrolling. This felt like very deliberate posturing. The intensity has been particularly high at 4 spots: Khao Satasum, Chongbuk, Tamarintom Temple, and Chongcham. And they've even reinforced recently.
Yeah.
So Cambodia makes this big show of force. Yeah. What was Thailand's response? Did they just match troop numbers, or was there another strategy?
Well, Thailand's Army Region 2 did reinforce, yes, to sort of counterbalance things. And they'd actually been taking steps since April, trying to lower the temperature, get Cambodian forces back to their original lines. But Thailand's initial big move, their first card, you might call it, was the military proposing to the government that they close border checkpoints.
Ah, okay. Like a pressure tactic.
Exactly. Psychological warfare, really, designed to push Cambodia towards negotiation. They were careful how they communicated it, tried to avoid, major humanitarian fallout.
But Cambodia's PM, Hun Manet, didn't blink.
He dug in, demanded Thailand open the checkpoints first. Then both sides started hitting where the other was vulnerable. And what's quite telling is that sometimes the Cambodian government's calculations seemed focused on maybe personal gains, which led to closures that actually hurt their own people more.
You have an example of that.
Yeah, the Chang'an Ma checkpoint in Ubon Ratchathani. Cambodian communities right there, they rely heavily on Thai goods. Suddenly, they had to travel an extra 10 kilometers just for basics because of the closure. It backfired in a way.
Interesting. And there was international stuff happening too.
Right. Han Mane also brought up involving a third country mediator, which was curious timing because Cambodia was facing some international heat already.
Yep.
You know, the UN calling it a scammer hub, the US blacklisting a company linked to Hun Sen's nephew. And through all this border tension, China was conspicuously silent.
Right. As another layer. So where was Prime Minister Paetongtarn in all this initially?
Well, she got back from a visit to Emerald Base. That's a key military command center, got briefed with continuous intelligence, and then she approved the military's plan, the checkpoint closure idea.
So that signaled a shift, a move towards a tougher stance from Thailand.
It did. It looked like policy was shifting.
Okay, but then the leak. You called it the game changer. How so?
Because honestly, if it wasn't for this leaked audio clip, PM Paetongtarn might still have felt bound by that debt of gratitude, the complex relationship between her father, Thaksin, and Hun Sen.
And what was being held back because of that relationship, potentially?
Well, things like serious crackdowns on online scam operations, maybe even those border closure measures we talked about, they seemed paused. The leak then fueled this really damaging accusation, selling out the nation. The idea that private talks were happening that could compromise Thailand's sovereignty.
And this landed in a context where people were already uneasy, right?
Yeah.
Those pictures.
Exactly. Those photos of Thaksin and Hun Sen embracing, they were everywhere. It created this background noise, this public distrust about whether the government could be impartial, especially with things like the shared energy resources in the Gulf of Thailand on the table.
I remember there was a push to talk energy first, leave the border for later.
There was. But opposition grew, particularly around MOU 44. That's a key agreement that says you have to sort out the border before dealing with the energy wealth. That really put the brakes on the energy first approach.
So let's get to the clip itself. What was actually said that caused such a stir?
The core of it, the bit that really grabbed headlines, was the PM apparently saying to Hun Sen, "I don't want Uncle to listen to the opposition."
Uncle, referring to Hun Sen.
Yeah.
And the opposition.
Widely understood to mean the Thai military. And the tone, described as very familiar, like an uncle-niece chat, which, in the context of state leaders discussing sensitive issues, immediately raised eyebrows.
What was her defense when this came out?
Her immediate response was basically, "I'm not worried." She said conversations like this are normal between world leaders. It wasn't for personal gain. And importantly, it didn't damage the country.
But that defense itself blew up, didn't it? Why was saying no damage so controversial?
That's the crux of it. Because critics immediately jumped on that, saying the country lost nothing was seen as missing the point entirely, or worse, as deliberately downplaying the implications. The perception was that she was prioritizing the Shinawatra-Hun family connection over national security and diplomatic protocol. This supposedly private chat was seen as having very public, very damaging consequences for trust, for security, for Thailand's standing. It suggested to critics a lack of grasp on statecraft.
Okay, so the fallout was immediate. Let's dig into the specifics. What were the main criticisms leveled against her based on that clip?
Well, Paisal Puchmonkol, he's a legal expert and former senator. He laid out 4 really critical points. They give you a good sense of the gravity.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, interference with military operations. Remember, this conversation happened while border issues were hot, and the military technically had martial law authority there to manage things, including closing checkpoints. The accusation is the government, through this conversation, interfered with that authority, pushing to reopen them.
Undermining the military command structure during an active situation. Got it.
Second, calling the military the opposition. That phrase is just dynamite. It directly questions the military's constitutional role in protecting the nation. Calling your own military the opposition raises fundamental questions about where the PM's loyalties lie, or at least how she perceives the state apparatus.
Yeah, that sounds serious. What's third?
Third, the inappropriate familiarity. that uncle-niece tone. While maybe okay in private life, for a prime minister talking state business with a foreign leader, even a former one like Hun Sen, it's seen as unprofessional, damaging the image of the office, undermining her gravitas.
And the fourth point, this sounds like the big one.
It is. It's the phrase, "What do you want, uncle? Just tell me, I'll arrange it." I mean, that sounds incredibly deferential, almost subservient. Critics argue it implies a willingness to just fulfill Hun Sen's wishes, whatever they might be. Huge implications for public trust. Is the PM acting for Thailand or for uncle?
Wow. Okay, those are heavy points. But couldn't someone argue, sometimes leaders use informal language to build rapport, even in diplomacy. Is it definitely that bad?
You could try to make that argument, but the context here is just killer. Martial law at the border, active tensions, national security discussions. This wasn't a casual chat over coffee, referring to your own military as the opposition in that context, offering to arrange whatever a foreign figure wants. It goes way beyond informal rapport. It touches on core issues of national security, public trust, ethical leadership. It's just not ordinary talk in that situation.
So beyond those specific criticisms, what are the broader impacts people are worried about?
They break down into a few key areas. First, internal security. That opposition comment. It risks creating real mistrust between the civilian government and the military. Bad for morale, potentially destabilizing if that relationship frays.
Okay, internal friction. What about externally?
International relations. The perception problem. If it looks like Thailand's leader is using private back channels or seeking help from a former leader of another country, it can make Thailand look weak. It undermines the credibility of its official foreign policy, its formal diplomatic channels.
Makes sense. And for the PM herself.
Leader and government credibility. Big hit there. The leak makes her look, well, maybe careless, informal, and that "tell me what you want" line, even if meant nicely, just sounds transactional, open to interpretation about personal favors or political deals. Plus, the no damage defense backfired. It made it seem like she didn't get the seriousness, the sensitivity of state secrets and international communication.
And the public reaction.
Public opinion is definitely shaken. Trust erodes. People start asking, whose interests come first? The nation's? Or personal and family ties? Some might even wonder if she's fully in charge, the real leader, or if others are pulling strings.
Which leads to the last point.
Yeah, the impact on the Thai political order. This whole thing blurs that vital line between private relationships and the national interest. If leaders can have these kinds of private dealings with foreign figures without oversight, it raises serious questions about accountability and unchecked power. It's a worrying precedent.
So a lot of fallout. Where does this leave PM Paetongtarn now? What accountability mechanisms are kicking in?
There are several, and they're serious. The big one everyone's watching is the Constitutional Court. 36 senators petitioned them, asking if her job as PM is basically over because of, quote, lack of integrity and severe ethical violations. They also asked the court to suspend her while they decide. The court's set to look at it on July 1st.
Okay, Constitutional Court is key. What else?
The National Anti-Corruption Commission, the NACC, senators filed a complaint there too, alleging abuse of power, severe ethical breaches, same themes. Then there's the Election Commission, the EC. Someone named Ruangrai Likitwatana filed a petition there about her integrity, her status, those ethical violations again.
So multiple integrity probes. And politically.
Politically, expect a parliamentary no-confidence debate. Her own party, Pheu is actually expected to initiate it around July 3rd. They need 1/5 of MPs to get it going. If it's accepted, interestingly, it stops the government from dissolving parliament until the debate is over.
The Constitutional Court angle feels particularly potent, especially thinking back to the Sretha Thavisin case recently.
Exactly. That's the precedent everyone remembers. 40 senators went after former PM Sretha. The court took, about 87 days? And then voted, narrowly, 5-4, to remove him. The grounds were lack of clear integrity and severe ethical violations over a cabinet appointment. So it shows the court is willing and able to remove a sitting PM based on these kinds of ethics and integrity petitions. It's not just theoretical.
It really hammers home that this leaked conversation is far from ordinary. It has potentially huge legal and political consequences, almost like, echoes of Watergate, where Nixon's tapes changed everything. Leaked audio from the top can be truly game-changing.
Absolutely. Which leads to maybe some thoughts on the way forward. Based on what we've seen, First, the government really needs to offer a much more transparent, serious explanation than just nothing was damaged. People need reassurance, clarity. Second, and this seems obvious but crucial, they need an urgent review of cybersecurity. Leaks like this are incredibly destabilizing. Can't let it happen again. And third, perhaps most fundamentally, there has to be a clear, firm line drawn between personal ties and official state business, especially with foreign leaders. National interest has to be visibly paramount.
So this whole situation really leaves us, and you, our listener, with a critical question. What does this incident reveal about that very tricky balance between personal relationships and national interest when you're governing a country? And maybe more pointedly, how can a leader effectively demonstrate proactive leadership, really safeguard the nation's interests when they're caught in these kinds of political cross-currents and personal pressures? Stay tuned for the next episode of Suthichai Live English Podcast. We are a team, Ping and Pong.
Oh, thank you, Ping and Pong. So this is probably Paetongtarn's Watergate, and that could implode into a real big crisis, which may end with her being suspended from duties or her resignation. If not, dissolution of the House so that the power will go back to the people. Stay tuned for the next episode of Suthichai Live English Podcast.